Hi, welcome to my June wrap-up part 2. I've got 6 books to tell you about, so I'm going to jump right in. The first one is called The Darkness Within Ourselves by Jessica Huntley. This follows a group of teenagers who are all like a group of friends, and they all hang out a lot together and dare each other to do stupid crap like teenagers do. However, one day this game of dares goes wrong and one of the boys dies. The group then decides to hide the body and cover up that anything's happened. So everybody thinks this boy's just run away from town. And then it kind of jumps forward to years later when they're all in their 20s and they're all living separate lives. They've very much become separated, as in they're not in touch with each other, they're not friends, none of that. And I think there are a lot, I don't know if it's just me, but I seem to be coming across a lot of books with this kind of plot line. Like a group of friends make a decision to cover up a crime and then it all goes horribly wrong years later. I don't know if it's just me, or is it a trend at the minute? I don't know. However, what I really, really liked about this book was that even though each individual person in the group of friends, they'd all been there, they'd all witnessed the same thing, they'd all jointly, concealed the crime and the body and everything. When they were older, they all behaved or had different effects of this agreement that they kept. So it was kind of like each one was traumatized, but in a different way. And then bad things start happening and all these effects on their lives, and they've all named it something different. Like one thinks they're suffering from depression, another one thinks they've got hallucinations, things like that. I just think it was just so well done, that bit, that everybody, it kind of showed that we can all go through the same thing, but we can all have different effects of it, or like different responses to the same event. And that's what I loved. And I really liked how all the characters were very different as well, because that made it so that even though it's a group of friends, they were very distinct characters and it was easy to follow that way. I wasn't getting confused. But what happens is that one day something happens that brings the whole incident back up into like the light, I want to say, or like into people's minds. And the group have to kind of get back in touch with each other and figure out how they're going to deal with this situation that has arisen, and do they need to admit things or cover things up again. It was actually a really, really quick read. It was quite interesting. There's a little bit of like supernatural vibes going on, paranormal stuff, but it very much did have this like ominous thriller feeling to it. So I can't say that it's definitely a thriller or it's definitely horror. It was just a good mix of both. I thought this was really enjoyable and I gave it 4 stars. And then next up is another book that kind of like traverses multiple genres, and that's Near the Bone by Christina Henry. This was my first Christina Henry book, despite owning a couple of others. Still not got to them. But it will not be my last, far from it, because let me tell you, that woman can write an atmosphere. Jeez. So basically, this is set on a mountain, like super, super remote. We follow Matty and William, husband and wife. Matty is completely reliant on William for survival. He is like the kind of hunter-gatherer type person. They live like super, super, super isolated. Like they never see another person at all. Occasionally, William will go down into the local town to collect supplies, but Matty never ever leaves that mountaintop. One day, she sees signs that there is a large unknown creature in the area. She's used to like creatures' tracks and the signs that they leave, and she doesn't recognise these ones, so she knows it's an animal they've never come across before. She also knows it's extremely large. And so that also like puts pressure on their survival up on the mountain. But then 3 strangers appear on the mountain, and it turns out that they are hunting like kind of like a legend of an animal or a beast being up on the mountain, kind of like how people go looking for Sasquatch or Loch Ness Monster. So they've heard that there might be some kind of unusual paranormal type beast or whatever, something supernatural going on up on the mountain. They head up there tracking it to try and like film it and, you know, get the names put out there. So William is not happy about that at all. He does not want Matty anywhere near these people, and she knows that her life as such is manageable if she can keep William happy and if she doesn't make him angry. Now, that is easier said than done. Let me just say there are massive trigger warnings for domestic violence and rape, I think, within this book. Massive domestic violence. So when I say Matty needs to keep William happy, I mean it in a very sinister way. So it all starts going horribly wrong for the couple, and in particular Matty, because she's bearing the brunt of William's anger that there's people up on the mountain and that there's this beast that seems to be stalking them. The whole story felt very creepy, very claustrophobic, and that's crazy because they were out in the open wilderness on the mountain, but it just felt, you could just feel that feeling of being trapped and like there's no escape and you can't get any help. Matty is definitely like an underdog character where you absolutely fall in love with her and you just wanted to like get the courage to stand up to William and to, you know, just get away from him. And yeah, she was adorable. I thought she was a fantastic character. So again, this has got very like supernatural vibes to it, especially as the story goes on and you start discovering more about this, you know, this beast. Yeah, so it's very supernatural, but it's also a bit of a thriller, so I'm not sure. I think that again is thriller horror type stuff. Absolutely amazing. I loved this book. I did only give it 4 stars because there was just something, but I still loved it, and I was really looking forward to jumping back in when I had to stop to go and do other stuff. So I do really recommend it. And next we have Tampa by Alyssa Nuttall. That is a buttonhole, not a vagina, people. Do not put your minds in the gutter. However, this book, the author had their mind in the gutter whilst writing this, I think. Right. This book is extremely controversial, and it's about paedophilia, basically. Let's just say that. It is. It is a female teacher who gets into a sexual relationship with a male student, and he's 13 from memory. It's not for everyone. It is not. This book is extremely graphic. It's very uncomfortable reading it. That being said, I gave it 4 stars, and that's not because I'm that way inclined in the slightest. I think it did its job. It did what it was supposed to do. This book is supposed to be uncomfortable and controversial, and the whole thing is written from the perspective of this female teacher, and we literally are in her mind throughout the book, so we get to hear or read, whatever you want to say, all her innermost thoughts and feelings about the boy, other boys, the people around her, her husband. And to me, that was absolutely fascinating because obviously that's not something that I would experience normally. And I just found it so interesting that other people can think like that. So that's why I gave it 4 stars, not because I thought it was... I don't know how I want to explain it. It's an interesting storyline. I'm really struggling. It's an interesting storyline, and I liked where the book went in one way. I can't even. I don't know what to say. Basically, I liked how the story progressed, as in the situation she found herself in and how she got there and her thoughts around it and what happened in the end and how it all ended. That I did enjoy that, and it, like I said, it was just really interesting to read a different perspective that we don't normally come across in books. I think that this is going to be a book that you either love or hate. I don't think anyone would ever read it and think, yeah, it's okay. I think you're either going to really enjoy it and have the same kind of appreciation of it that I did, or the same opinions, or it's just going to be way too much for you and you would hate it. I buddy read this with a friend, and she normally likes messed up books like I do, and she said it was way too much for her. I'm not sure what that says about me, but yeah, if you want to, give it a go. But yeah, massive trigger warnings in this book. Next up is Vox. I have read a Christina Dolce book previously called Q, and absolutely raved about that one, and I'm going to do the same about Vox because I thought this was amazing. It's not a secret that I absolutely adore dystopian and the kind of feminist dystopian. It's just I think Christina Dolce is just literally on a podium for me. Like, I don't think she can ever write anything that I wouldn't like so far. I just think she's amazing. Anyway, so the story. Right. So this one is set in like a society where suddenly, overnight, a new kind of government takes control and they decide to limit women and girls to 100 words a day maximum. So they all get put these like tracker things on the wrist, like kind of like a watch, but it counts the words, and it's programmed to recognise their voice only. And every word that they utter, it counts down. When they get to 0, that's it, they've run out of words for the day. If they then try and speak another word, they get an electric shock. And the more words they speak past that limit, the higher the voltage of the electric shock, to the point where it can kill them. And not only about the word limit, basically women are just, I don't even know how to explain it. They're basically just like they just exist. They can't have a job. They're not allowed to read or write. They're not allowed to teach other girls to read or write. It's just like this horrible situation where women are just basically there, I guess, to cook meals, to clean, and to raise children, but wordlessly. It was a little upsetting because I was reading it, and one of the bits that really bothered me, now considering I've read other things, obviously much more upsetting or much more controversial. The bit that got me in this book was when she said that she wasn't allowed to read her children a bedtime story because she didn't have enough words left by the end of every day. And that just really upset me, because that's something I've done with my children every single day from them being born. And then there was also a bit where her daughter was having serious nightmares, and she wasn't able to comfort her properly because she'd run out of words. So she couldn't say things like normal, what we would say is, "Oh God, don't worry, sweetheart, it was just a bad dream. Come on, let's give you a cuddle." None of it, no reassurance, nothing. She could just sit there and give her a cuddle. But it was actually the dad that was then like stepping in and talking to the daughter. But the daughter couldn't even explain what she dreamt about or say she was upset because she also had run out of words. It was just horrible. But I just love this kind of dystopian where like we see another society. it was just fantastic. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you how it turns out. We all know that the feminist character, the protagonist, will always rise up against the current regime and try and, beat it down. But yeah, and it was just fantastic. Absolutely amazing. 5 stars, easy. Then we've got The Serial Killer's Wife by Alice Hunter. This one is about a happily married couple called Beth and Tom. They've got young children. Tom's got a good job. Beth has taken over running like a local cafe / craft place. Everything is perfect until one day the police knock on the door and arrest Tom for suspicion of murdering his ex-girlfriend. And that happens right at the beginning of the book. And right from that moment, we know that Tom's guilty. I'm not spoiling anything for you here, because we get chapters from Tom's perspective as well as Beth's. And when we're in Tom's perspective, we are literally in the mind of a killer. And he talks about the things he's done and his feelings. He thinks about them, and we read his thoughts. I don't know, whatever. So we know he's a killer. You will know he's a killer if you read it right from the beginning. I'm not ruining anything. So you kind of think, well, it's a thriller, but we know who done it right at the beginning. So what else can happen? Well, actually, it's more about the story unraveling than about who did what. And it's the whole book is then just gradually finding out more and more information about what happened and how he ended up killing his ex-girlfriend, how him and Beth met, things like that. We occasionally get a very random chapter thrown in that is from Tom's ex-girlfriend's perspective as well. So we get to see little bits of his history as well, but from another person's perspective, looking at him and how he behaves. And then Beth is, a lot of her kind of chapters are about how she's struggling to cope with day-to-day life, I guess, since her husband's arrest, and how she's dealing with the revelation. She doesn't know he is guilty initially, and they were new to the area, so Beth doesn't really have any friends to rely on. There's no family nearby. It's about her struggling to make friends and to fit into a community whilst dealing with this massive suspicion that everybody obviously knows about. So yeah, you might think it doesn't sound that great, but it really was. I found it really, really fascinating. Looking at how somebody deals with that situation, but then again, at the killer's perspective, how they felt about it. And then at the end comes this massive twist, massive. It just blew the book out of the water. I did not expect it coming at all, and it was fantastic. But yeah, this is just a really, really, really great thriller, but an unusual format, I guess. I guess I want to say. But yeah, this 4 stars, easily, really recommend this one. Then we have got The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. This thriller, this just throws you in at the deep end right from the beginning, and I mean right at the beginning. And there's huge trigger warnings again for child death, and it's in detail. It's quite shocking, to be honest. I think I got about 15 seconds into the book and I was like, oh, what's happening here? So he starts with quite a detailed description of a murder of a child, which it is upsetting. It is, and if that's not your thing, avoid this book, because it's not nice. And then we kind of look at the immediate aftermath and the children that played with that little boy and what kind of happened, how they were involved. And you then spend the rest of the book jumping backwards and forwards between back then when that little boy was murdered, and everything's basically focused on this one little girl, and how she's involved in it. And she's not a nice girl at all. It's quite rare to find a child that you really don't like. But this child, no, she's not likeable in the slightest. However, she also experiences quite a lot of abuse. And it's very emotional, mental, neglect, that kind of stuff, rather than physical and sexual. It's just not nice at all. So I guess there's part of you that kind of goes, like, that poor child. But then it kind of doesn't excuse what happened. But then we also get perspectives from a lady called Julia years and years later, and how she is dealing with being a mother, and her anxieties around her child and the child's safety, and getting a child taken off her and taken into care, that kind of thing. And you've got to try and figure out the connection and what happened in the intervening years. And it was just really, really good. It does have more detailed incidents later on as well, I will say that. It was like, I don't know, I want to say like a car crash where you I know I shouldn't look, but I can't stop looking. It's really fascinating, even though it's horrible. It felt a bit like that, because this child is a horrible child, but it's incredibly interesting at the same time. Yeah, it was a really, really good book. I did enjoy it, and I've got to say, that kind of messed up beginning that just came out of nowhere really did have me interested in the rest of the book. Yeah, again, I'm not sure what that says about me, but yeah, as thrillers go, it was a thriller, It was a bit messed up, and it was really interesting. So I gave this 4 stars. And that is all the books that I read in June. I haven't, I don't think I did in my part 1 video. I definitely haven't in this one mentioned which books were ARCs and which weren't, because to be honest, it makes no difference, because they have all been published now. In fact, some of them were published before I read them, so it doesn't matter whether it was an ARC with regards to you guys going out looking for the book if you want to read it. They are all published. Please go and find them if you're interested. And that is all for June, so thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all soon in another video. Bye.